The vast expanse of space rippled as the Galactic Council's flagship, the Celestial Harmony, tore through the fabric of reality. Its crystalline hull, fashioned from materials unknown to the primitive species they were about to contact, caught the light of a yellow star and scattered it in rainbow patterns across its surface. Senior diplomat Taeho stood at the observation deck, his tall, slender frame casting a long shadow across the polished floor. Like all members of his species, his silver-tinted skin reflected light in subtle patterns, a trait that had evolved on their homeworld of eternal twilight. He reached up to adjust his translator implant, a small device nestled behind his ear that allowed him to understand thousands of languages across the galaxy. Another routine first contact, he murmured to himself, watching as the blue-green planet grew larger in their view. His assistant, Jai-yun, worked at her station nearby, her fingers dancing across holographic displays that floated in the air around her. The ship's sensors were gathering data about the planet and its inhabitants. Information streamed across Jai-yun's screens: atmospheric composition, population centers, technology levels, and communication frequencies. She sorted through it all with practiced efficiency, her expression remaining neutral until something caught her attention. "Honored diplomat," she called out, her voice carrying across the quiet bridge. "Initial analysis confirms this is a Class 3 civilization. They've mastered nuclear fusion and have begun exploring their local space." She paused, double-checking her readings. "They have several orbital stations and have established a small base on their moon." Taeho nodded. It was exactly what they had expected to find. Class 3 civilizations were common enough, species that had discovered the basics of space travel but hadn't yet achieved faster-than-light technology. These were the kinds of civilizations the Council sought out, helping them join the galactic community safely and peacefully. "Begin standard first contact procedures," he ordered, straightening his ceremonial robes. "Monitor their primary communication channels and prepare the welcome message." The ship's communication officers began their work, carefully monitoring Earth's radio and digital transmissions. They had done this hundreds of times before. It was a well-practiced routine. First, they would listen and learn the basic language patterns. Then, they would send a simple greeting in the planet's dominant languages. However, something unexpected happened as they began processing the planet's communications. The universal translators, devices that could handle even the most complex alien languages, seemed to stumble over something basic. "Sir," one of the communication officers called out, "there seems to be an error in the translation matrix." Taeho moved to examine the officer's display. "What kind of error?" "It's about how they refer to their planet," the officer explained. "The translation keeps coming back as, well, it doesn't make sense." Jai-yun joined them, her own displays following her movement. "What's wrong with the translation?" The officer looked uncomfortable. "According to our translators, they call their planet dirt." Silence fell over the bridge. Taeho blinked his inner eyelids, a sign of confusion in his species. "Run it again," he ordered. They ran the translation multiple times, through different systems and protocols. Each time, the result was the same. The humans, as they called themselves, had named their homeworld Earth, which, in its most basic translation, meant dirt or soil. They named their homeworld after soil. Jai-yun whispered in disbelief. She quickly pulled up historical records from other first contact situations. In all their centuries of meeting new species, they had never encountered one that named their planet after something so mundane. Most species chose names that reflected their highest aspirations or deepest religious beliefs. Names like Cradle of Stars, Eternal Garden, or Divine Sphere were common. Even Taeho's own homeworld was named Twilight's Embrace, reflecting the eternal dusk of their binary star system. "Perhaps," Taeho suggested, "it's a translation error we don't understand yet. Surely no species would name their world after common soil." But as they continued monitoring communications, the truth became undeniable. Not only had humans named their planet after dirt, but they seemed entirely comfortable with this fact. They spoke of Earth with pride and affection, seemingly unaware of how unusual this was from a galactic perspective. "Should we delay the first contact, honored diplomat?" Jayan asked, concern evident in her voice. "This might indicate some fundamental difference in their psychology that we should study first." Taeho stood quietly for a long moment, watching the blue planet spin below them. Finally, he shook his head. "No, we proceed as planned." But, he added with a slight smile, "I believe this first contact might be more interesting than we anticipated." As the celestial harmony moved into position to make its presence known to humanity, Taeho couldn't help but wonder what other surprises these dirt dwellers might have in store for them. Something told him this wouldn't be the routine first contact he had expected. Above the Earth, the crystalline ship began broadcasting its greeting, while below, humanity remained unaware that their simple name for their homeworld was about to cause quite a stir in galactic diplomatic circles. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council sparkled under the light of 1,000 floating crystals. The Jinn stood at the central podium, trying not to fidget with his formal diplomatic uniform. After 6 months of intensive diplomatic training following Earth's first contact, he hadn't imagined his first major crisis would be about something so simple as Earth's name. The chamber itself was overwhelming. Shaped like a massive bowl, its walls curved upward into a dome that seemed to contain an entire galaxy. Representatives from over 300 species sat in tiered seats, their varied forms creating a living rainbow of colors and shapes. Some floated in special anti-gravity pods, while others sat in pools of specially maintained atmospheres. Hajin took a deep breath, feeling the weight of all their eyes upon him. As Earth's chief xenolinguist, he was used to explaining human concepts to aliens. But this was different. The entire Galactic Council's Cultural Exchange Summit had ground to a halt over this single issue. Counselor Sua rose from her seat, her iridescent robes catching the light and sending ripples of color across the chamber. Like many of the older species in the Council, her people had evolved beyond the need for solid forms, existing as patterns of light and energy contained within specialized suits. "With all due respect to our new human friends," she began, her voice translated perfectly into every language in the chamber, "we find it difficult to believe that any spacefaring species would choose such a basic name for their homeworld." Heijin could feel sweat forming on his forehead. The universal translators were working perfectly, perhaps too perfectly. Every time he said, "Earth," they rendered it as dirt in the other languages, causing small ripples of shock through the assembled delegates. "We have many names for Earth," he explained, trying to keep his voice steady. "Terra, Gaia, but they all essentially mean the same thing. The ground beneath our feet. It's not about being basic or poetic. It's about being accurate." The chamber erupted in murmurs of disbelief. A delegate from the crystalline species of Luminara stood up, their faceted body casting rainbow patterns on the walls. "But do you not see the philosophical poverty of such a name? Our world is called Crystal Symphony because it reflects the harmony of our civilization." Another delegate, a gaseous being contained in a swirling energy field, joined in. "We named our homeworld Eternal Dance of Dreams to capture the essence of our collective consciousness." Heijin raised his hands, trying to calm the growing chorus of protests. "Please, honored delegates, consider this. Is there not beauty in simplicity? In calling things exactly what they are?" The chamber grew quieter, but he could sense their skepticism. A smaller delegate, looking somewhat like a walking plant, spoke up. "But surely you must feel some shame to join the galactic community and discover that all other worlds have such poetic names." Heijin smiled, remembering something his grandmother used to say. "On the contrary, we humans have a saying, truth is beauty, and beauty truth. What could be more beautiful than acknowledging our connection to the soil that gave us life?" He gestured to a holographic display of Earth that floated above the chamber. "Look at our world. Blue oceans, white clouds, green forests, and brown earth. We didn't name it after our dreams or aspirations. We named it after what it is: the ground that nurtures us, the soil that feeds us, the earth that holds our roots. Counselor Sua's form flickered thoughtfully. But your species has poetry, does it not? You create art, music, literature. Why not choose one of those concepts for your world's name? Because, He Jin replied, sometimes the most profound poetry is in simple truth. Yes, we have poetry. We write about love and dreams and destiny. But we also write about dirt under our fingernails, about planting seeds, about the smell of rain on soil. These things are not separate from our poetry. They are our poetry. He pushed away from his desk, letting himself drift in the low gravity as he thought aloud. But here's what's really interesting. It might tell us something fundamental about human psychology, something that makes us unique in the galaxy. My son raised an eyebrow. Our lack of poetry. No, Du-hyun smiled. Our connection to reality. Every other species tried to elevate their world through naming, to make it more than it was. But humans, we accepted what was right in front of us. We saw dirt, and we called it dirt. He pulled up another display, this one showing human achievements throughout history. Look at our scientific discoveries, our technological advances. Time and again, humans made breakthroughs because we looked at things exactly as they were, not as we wished them to be. My son floated to a nearby window, gazing out at Jupiter's swirling clouds. So you're saying our literal-mindedness might be an advantage? More than that, Du-hyun said, joining her at the window. It might be the key to understanding why humans have adapted so quickly to galactic society. Other species spend centuries contemplating the poetic significance of everything they encounter. We just say, oh, that's a rock. Let's see what we can do with it. They both watched as one of Jupiter's moons emerged from behind the giant planet's bulk. The research station's orbit would take them past it soon. We should write this up, my son suggested. The Galactic Council's Xenolinguistics department would be very interested. Do-hyun nodded, already thinking about how to present their findings. It's not just about language anymore. This could help explain human behavior patterns, our approach to problem solving, even our rapid technological development. As they floated back to their workstations, Du-hyun couldn't help but smile. After all these years studying alien languages and cultures, it turned out that the most fascinating discovery was about humans themselves. Sometimes, he thought, the biggest mysteries were hiding in the simplest things, like calling a planet exactly what it was. Behind them, Jupiter continued its eternal dance, indifferent to the profound discoveries being made in its orbit. The research station's computers hummed quietly, processing data about thousands of worlds with poetic names, while its human occupants contemplated the beauty of simple truth. Yum-Soo checked her data one final time before entering the Grand Hall of the Galactic Science Academy. The massive building, with its twisting spires of living crystal, always made her feel small. Today, she felt even smaller, knowing she was about to challenge centuries of scientific tradition. The presentation chamber was packed with scientists from across the galaxy. Some floated in anti-gravity fields, others sat in environmental bubbles, and a few existed as pure energy patterns. All of them were here to see her new classification system for deep space phenomena. As she set up her holographic displays, Young-Soo could hear the murmurs of the audience. They were discussing her previous paper, which had caused quite a stir. She had dared to rename the celestial rainbow cascade as Radiation Wave Pattern Type 3. The more poetic-minded scientists had been outraged. Are you ready to begin? The Academy director's voice came through her translator. Like many advanced species, the director existed as a pattern of light and energy, their form shifting in complex patterns that supposedly held deep meaning. Young-Soo just saw it as a way to move around without a body. Yes, director, she replied, activating her main display. A three-dimensional map of known space filled the air above the audience. I'm here to present a standardized classification system for deep space phenomena, based on observable properties rather than poetic descriptions. The audience stirred uncomfortably. For thousands of years, galactic science had named things based on their beauty and perceived spiritual significance. It was considered crude to simply describe what something was. This, Young Su said, highlighting the swirling pattern of energy, is currently known as the Stellar Dream Cascade. But what does that name tell us about its properties? Nothing. I propose renaming it Spacetime Full Type 7 based on its measurable characteristics. A scientist from the Luminarian species raised their crystalline form, but the current name captures its essence, its beauty, its significance to the cosmic dance. Young Su nodded respectfully. The phenomenon is indeed beautiful, but when a ship's navigator encounters it, they don't need poetry. They need to know exactly what they're dealing with. She pulled up a comparison chart. Under the current system, we have similar phenomena with completely different names. The Dancer's Veil in the Carina sector and the Cosmic Dream near Antares are actually the same type of spacetime distortion. But because of their poetic names, 3 ships last year flew into them unprepared. The chamber grew quiet. Ship safety was something every species took seriously. My system, Young Su continued, categorizes phenomena based on their physical properties. Type 1 through Type 3 are radiation-based. Type 4 through Type 6 are gravitational. Type 7, like our example, involves spacetime distortion. She demonstrated how each category had clear, measurable criteria. A quantum fluctuation would be classified the same way whether it was discovered in human space or on the other side of the galaxy. A younger scientist, their form barely containing their excited energy, spoke up. But how do we account for the spiritual significance of these phenomena? Many of our species have religious connections to these cosmic events. Young Su smiled. The classification doesn't prevent you from using poetic names in cultural contexts, but for scientific and navigation purposes, we need clarity. A pilot needs to know instantly whether they're looking at a dangerous anomaly or a harmless light show. She pulled up actual incident reports, ships that had misidentified phenomena because their poetic names gave no indication of their nature. Research projects that had duplicated work because they didn't realize other species had already studied the same thing under a different name. The director's form pulsed thoughtfully. Your system is undeniably practical, but it lacks the beauty we have traditionally brought to our scientific endeavors. With respect, Director, Young Su replied, I find beauty and clarity in understanding exactly what we're looking at. Isn't there poetry in seeing things as they truly are? She highlighted a particular region of space. This area was called the Gardens of Eternal Light. Poetic, yes, but when we renamed it Radiation Zone Type 2, ships knew immediately to avoid it. Sometimes the most beautiful thing we can do is speak plainly. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some scientists were nodding in agreement, while others seemed offended by the very idea. But Young Su could see that her words had hit home with many of them. A group of younger scientists from various species approached her platform. We've been working on similar ideas, one of them said, their form flickering with excitement. The old naming system makes it so hard to compare data across different research teams. Young Su felt hope rising. Maybe she wasn't alone in thinking the galaxy needed a dose of human practicality. As the debate continued around her, she pulled up more examples, showing how her system could standardize scientific communication across all species. By the end of her presentation, even some of the traditionalists were grudgingly admitting that a practical classification system might be useful, at least for scientific purposes. They could keep their poetic names for cultural use. As she packed up her displays, Young Su couldn't help but smile. She hadn't set out to start a scientific revolution. She had just wanted things to make sense. But sometimes that was revolutionary enough. Behind her, the director was already forming a committee to study the implementation of her system. The galaxy might not be ready to call their planets dirt, but at least they were willing to call a dangerous space phenomenon exactly what it was. Sang Mei stared at her screens until her eyes burned. The messages from the Outer Rim colonies kept flowing in, each one more beautifully worded than the last. But something felt wrong. After 3 years as head of Earth's diplomatic security, she had learned to trust her instincts. "Run it again," she told her computer, rubbing her tired eyes. The artificial intelligence displayed another set of diplomatic communications, filled with phrases about eternal harmony and celestial peace. Any other analyst would see them as standard galactic diplomatic language. But Sang Mei saw something else. The security office was quiet at this late hour. Through her window, she could see Earth glowing blue and white against the black of space. The diplomatic station's orbit gave her a perfect view of home, the planet that other species still couldn't believe was named after dirt. Her computer beeped, highlighting patterns she had programmed it to watch for. The Outer Rim colonies had been sending increasingly elaborate messages over the past month. While most species in the galaxy used flowery language, these messages were different. They were almost too perfect, too poetic. Sang Mei pressed a button on her desk. "Get me Admiral Minho." Now, within minutes, the Admiral's hologram appeared in her office. Despite the late hour, he looked alert. "What have you found?" "Look at these patterns," Sang Mei said, sharing her screen data. The Outer Rim messages follow a specific structure. Each beautiful phrase has a double meaning. Minho frowned, his holographic form flickering slightly. "Show me." Sang Mei highlighted a recent message. "Our hearts sing with the melody of eternal friendship." Seems harmless, right? But look at the original language. The word they use for melody can also mean mourning, and eternal uses a form that implies final. "That could be a translation error," Minho suggested, but she could see he was troubled. "I found 57 similar examples in the past week alone," Sang Mei continued. "They're using the galactic love of poetic language to hide their real message. While everyone's distracted by the beautiful words, they're positioning for attack." She pulled up a map of recent ship movements. Every time they send one of these overly poetic messages, their ships move closer to key strategic positions. Minho's hologram paced her office. "The Council won't believe this. You know how they are about diplomatic language. The more flowery the message, the more peaceful they assume it is." "That's exactly what the Outer Rim is counting on," Sang Mei said. "They know most species think humans are too literal, too simple in our communication. They don't expect us to look past the beautiful words." She showed him more data: ship movements, resource stockpiles, subtle changes in trade patterns, all hidden behind a wall of elaborate diplomatic poetry. "We need to present this to the Council," Minho decided. "They won't listen," Sang Mei said. "Remember what happened when we suggested using plain language in diplomatic communications? They thought we were barbarians. Then we need proof they can't ignore." Sang Mei nodded, pulling up more screens. "I've been tracking their ships. The poetry gets more elaborate when they're about to make a significant move. Based on the latest messages, they're planning something big." She highlighted a particular phrase from the most recent communication. "Our joy flows like stardust in the cosmic dance of friendship." The word structure is almost identical to ancient war declarations from their culture. Minho's hologram leaned closer to the displays. "How long do we have?" "Based on ship movements and message patterns, less than a week. But if we warn the Council now, the Outer Rim will know we've broken their code. They'll change their plans. And if we wait, we might get the proof we need," Sang Mei said, "but we'll have less time to respond." Minho was quiet for a long moment, studying the data. Finally, he nodded. "Keep tracking them. I'll put our forces on quiet alert. But we need something concrete before we go to the Council." "There's one more thing," Sang Mei added. "The latest message. It's different." She pulled up a text filled with especially elaborate poetry about cosmic harmony and eternal friendship. "What about it?" "It's too perfect. Every word is precisely chosen. In all my years studying their communications, I've never seen anything this elaborate." She highlighted key phrases. "I think this is it," their final message before they move. Minho straightened, his holographic form becoming clearer. "How sure are you?" "Sure enough to bet Earth on it." He nodded grimly. "Keep monitoring. I'll make sure we're ready. But Sang-mi," he paused, his image flickering. "If you're wrong about this, it's not just your career. Earth could lose its place in the galactic community." Sang-mi looked out her window at Earth again, thinking of all the humans who trusted their safety to people like her, who believed that calling their planet dirt didn't make them less worthy of respect than species with more poetic names. "I'm not wrong," she said quietly. "They're counting on everyone being too polite, too poetic to see the truth. But sometimes you need to call a threat a threat." As Minho's hologram faded, Sang-mi turned back to her screens. The beautiful words kept flowing in from the outer rim, each message more elegant than the last. But behind the poetry, she could see the truth, and she knew time was running out. Junho's fingers moved rapidly across his holographic keyboard as he refined the algorithm one last time. The computer lab at the Earth Diplomatic Center hummed with energy as multiple systems processed the massive amount of data. Beside him, Yi-Jin monitored the results, her face illuminated by the blue glow of the screens. Junho held his breath as the leader reviewed the evidence one final time. Around him, he could feel the tension in the room growing. Everything depended on this moment. "The Dirt Protocol," the leader said slowly, "has shown us something important. Truth can be hidden by beauty, just as beauty can be found in truth." They turned to Admiral Minho. "You have your authorization. Defend our worlds. All our worlds, whether named for dirt or dreams." As the chamber burst into action, Junho caught Yi-Jin's eye. They had done it. Sometimes, he thought, you needed someone willing to look past the poetry and call things exactly what they were. Yuna adjusted her formal robes as she stood before the great chamber of the Galactic Council. 5 years had passed since the Outer Rim crisis, and much had changed. The chamber itself reflected this change. While still beautiful with its crystalline walls and floating lights, it now featured clear, practical displays showing real-time information in simple language. Looking out at the assembled representatives from 1,000 worlds, she could see how far they had come. Species that once existed as pure energy now used simplified forms for clearer communication. Even the most traditionally poetic races had embraced a new way of sharing information. "Distinguished representatives," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the universal translators. 5 years ago, we faced a crisis that taught us an important lesson about communication. Today, I present the final version of the standardized classification protocol. The holographic displays activated, showing examples of the new system in action. Gone were the flowery diplomatic phrases that had once hidden threats. In their place were clear, direct statements that left no room for misunderstanding. "We've learned," she continued, "that beauty in language should never come at the expense of clarity. This protocol doesn't eliminate poetry. It gives it its proper place, while ensuring our vital communications remain clear and understandable." A representative from one of the oldest species, their form a subtle pattern of light, spoke up. "When humans first joined our community, we thought their direct way of speaking showed a lack of sophistication. We were wrong. They showed us that truth itself can be beautiful." Yuna nodded, pulling up more examples. "Look at how we now classify astronomical phenomena. Instead of poetic names that could mean anything, we use descriptions that tell us exactly what we're dealing with. Ships can navigate safely. Scientists can share discoveries effectively. Diplomats can understand each other clearly." The displays showed before and after examples. What was once called the eternal dance of starlight was now clearly labeled as Class 3 radiation field. The gardens of celestial dreams had become high-energy plasma zone. But the most profound change, Yuna said, has been in how we view ourselves. She brought up images of various homeworlds. "Some of you have begun using practical names for your own worlds, not as an insult, but as a recognition of what truly matters. It was true. After the crisis, several species had started referring to their planets by their primary physical characteristics. The crystal world, once known as Symphony of Light, was now commonly called Crystal Sphere. Its people had found that the simple name carried its own kind of poetry. "We all come from dirt," Yana continued, "and to dirt we shall return. It's not what we call our worlds that matters. It's what we build upon them." The chamber was silent, absorbing her words. She could see understanding in their faces, whether they were organic, energy, or something in between. The crisis had taught them that truth and beauty weren't opposites. They were two parts of the same whole. "This protocol," she explained, "builds on that understanding. It gives us a framework for clear communication while preserving our cultural richness. Poetry hasn't disappeared. It's found its proper place." She demonstrated how the new system worked, showing how important messages were now structured for maximum clarity, while cultural and artistic communications could still use all the beauty of traditional language. The Outer Rim crisis showed us the danger of hiding meaning behind beautiful words, she reminded them. But it also showed us something else, the power of seeing things as they truly are. Several council members nodded. They remembered how the simple dirt protocol had saved them from disaster. Now, that same principle of clarity had spread throughout galactic civilization. "The dirt protocol is ready," Jun-Ho announced, sitting back in his chair. He had chosen the name deliberately, a reminder that sometimes the simplest answer was the right one. After weeks of non-stop work, they had created something unprecedented, a program that could strip away the flowery language of galactic diplomacy and reveal the core meaning beneath. "Run it against the latest batch," Yi Jin said, pulling up the diplomatic messages that had arrived in the last hour. The Outer Rim colonies were still sending their elaborate communications, each one more poetically beautiful than the last. The program began its work. It analyzed each word, comparing it against thousands of diplomatic communications, looking for patterns and hidden meanings. On the main screen, the flowery text began to transform. "Look at this," Jun-Ho pointed. A message about eternal friendship blooming like stellar flowers was stripped down to its basic components. The program highlighted key phrases, showing their alternate meanings in different contexts. Yi Jin leaned forward. "The threat pattern is even clearer now. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. They just know nobody else can see past the poetry." The emergency alarm blared through the station before Jun-Ho could respond. Red lights flashed as Admiral Minho's voice came over the intercom. "All senior staff to the emergency council chamber." Repeat, "All senior staff to the emergency council chamber." Jun-Ho and Yi Jin grabbed their data tablets and rushed through the corridors. Other staff members were running too, their faces showing mixture of fear and determination. Everyone had known this moment was coming, but that didn't make it any easier. The council chamber was already packed when they arrived. Representatives from dozens of species filled the tiered seats, their forms ranging from solid to energetic to purely light-based. Admiral Minho stood at the central podium with Sangmei, Earth's head of diplomatic security. "Show them," Minho ordered as Jun-Ho and Yi Jin took their places. Jun-Ho activated his tablet, connecting it to the chamber's main display system. The latest diplomatic message from the Outer Rim appeared, its elaborate poetry filling the air with shimmering text. "This message arrived 20 minutes ago," he explained. "It speaks of eternal harmony and celestial peace, but watch what happens when we apply the dirt protocol." He activated the program. The flowery language began to fade, replaced by simpler, clearer text. Gasps echoed through the chamber as the true meaning became apparent. "This isn't just a diplomatic greeting," Yi Jin added. "It's a coded battle plan. They'd been hiding their intentions in plain sight, using our love of poetic language against us." A council member made of pure energy pulsed with agitation. "Impossible. Such beautiful words cannot contain hostile intent." "That's exactly what they were counting on," Jun-Ho said. He pulled up more messages, running them through the protocol. Each one revealed hidden threats and tactical information. They knew most species would never look past the surface beauty to see the truth beneath. Another council member, their crystalline form reflecting light across the chamber, spoke up. But how can we trust this? This dirt protocol. It strips away the very essence of diplomatic communication. Jun-Ho stood straighter. Sometimes you need to strip away the decorations to see what's really there. Just like how humans name their planet after what it actually is. Dirt. He displayed a tactical map, overlaying it with decoded messages. Every poetic phrase about dancing starlight is actually a ship movement. Every eternal harmony is a weapon deployment. They've been building up for an attack while we admired their poetry. The chamber erupted in argument. Some council members refused to believe it, while others were beginning to see the pattern. Jun-Ho kept running messages through the protocol, building an undeniable case. Look, Yi Jin pointed to a new message that had just arrived. Run this one. The protocol processed it quickly. The results made Jun-Ho's blood run cold. This is it, he announced, his voice cutting through the chaos. Their attack order, hidden in a message about friendship's eternal dance. Admiral Minho stepped forward. We have ships ready to respond, but we need the Council's authorization. The chamber fell silent as the evidence mounted on the screens. Messages that had seemed beautiful and peaceful now revealed their true nature, a carefully planned attack using the galaxy's love of poetic language as cover. Finally, the Council leader, a being of pure thought and energy, moved to the center of the chamber. We have long believed that beauty in language reflected beauty in intention. Perhaps we were wrong. Look at us now, Yana said, gesturing to the assembled representatives. We communicate more clearly than ever before. We understand each other better. We're stronger because we've learned to value truth alongside beauty. The displays showed statistics, improved safety records, better scientific collaboration, fewer diplomatic misunderstandings. The results were clear. And so, she concluded, I present this protocol not just as a set of rules, but as a philosophy. A reminder that sometimes the most profound truths are also the simplest. Whether we come from worlds of dirt or crystal, water or gas, we all share this basic understanding. The Council voted unanimously to adopt the protocol. As Yana watched the results come in, she smiled. Humans had once been embarrassed by their planet's simple name. Now that very simplicity had helped change the galaxy. In the end, it wasn't about dirt at all. It was about seeing things as they were and finding beauty in that truth. As the council chamber filled with congratulations and discussion, Yana knew they had built something important, not despite their differences, but because of them. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the most beautiful poetry was simply telling the truth.